The motivation myth. What if everything you believe about needing motivation to succeed is a complete lie? You don't lack motivation. You lack a system that makes motivation irrelevant. Every broke person I've ever met was waiting to feel ready. Every rich person I've ever met built a routine so brutal it didn't care how they felt. Motivation is a feeling, and feelings expire in about 20 minutes. Systems don't expire. Systems don't care if you're sad, tired, heartbroken, or hungover. They just run. The gym doesn't ask if you're motivated. The alarm doesn't ask if you slept well. You show up because showing up is scheduled, not because you feel inspired. The people chasing motivation are still on episode 1 of their own life, watching, waiting, hoping the main character shows up. The people who win decided a long time ago that discipline was cheaper than motivation because discipline doesn't run out. Stop waiting to feel like doing the work. Build a life where the work happens whether you feel like it or not. The offer equation. What if the reason nobody buys from you has nothing to do with your product and everything to do with the offer wrapped around it? People don't pay for products, they pay for outcomes they can visualize with zero risk attached. A weak offer makes people think. A strong offer makes people feel stupid saying no. Increase the value until the price feels like a rounding error compared to what they get. Stack bonuses until the main thing almost feels free by comparison. Remove every excuse a buyer could hide behind. Slow results, risk, effort, confusion, and replace it with certainty. Most businesses aren't failing because the market is bad. They're failing because their offer is boring, safe, and forgettable. Nobody shares a boring offer with their friends. Nobody stays up thinking about an average deal. Build something so lopsided in the buyer's favor that saying no requires more effort than saying yes. That's not manipulation. That's just making the math impossible to ignore. Skill stacking. What if you never needed to be the best in the world at one single skill to become unstoppable? You just needed to stack the right average skills together. Nobody remembers the guy who was only good at one thing. They remember the person who could sell, write, speak, and lead all at a decent level, combined into one rare package. One elite skill makes you replaceable. 3 or 4 decent skills stacked together make you a category of 1. This is why generalists who commit quietly outperform specialists who never diversify. You don't need to be a genius copywriter, a genius closer, and a genius operator individually. You need to be good enough at all 3 that nobody can compete with the combination. Most people quit skill 2 because skill 1 didn't make them rich yet. That's the mistake. Stack skill after skill after skill until the combination itself becomes the moat nobody can copy. Rare isn't about talent. Rare is about the stack. Volume beats perfection. What if perfectionism is just fear wearing a disguise that makes you feel responsible instead of scared? You are not refining your work. You are hiding from the judgment that comes with putting it out. The people who win aren't more talented. They're just less afraid of looking bad in public over and over again until volume turns into skill. One perfect post that never gets published loses to 100 rough posts that actually go out. Reps build pattern recognition that theory never will. Every person who looks like an overnight success has a graveyard of embarrassing first attempts you never saw. The gap between where you are and where you want to be isn't talent, it's reps. Stop polishing the first attempt like it's the only attempt you get. Ship it ugly, ship it fast, ship it again tomorrow. Perfection is a trap designed to keep the fearful comfortable while everyone else laps them in public, one imperfect rep at a time, niching down to dominate. What if trying to help everyone is the exact reason you're currently helping no one at all? A message built for everybody lands with nobody, because nobody feels like it was written specifically for them. The riches are hiding in the specifics. The tighter the audience, the louder your message sounds to the right ears. When you speak to one exact person's exact problem, they feel seen, and people pay premium prices to feel understood before they ever feel sold to. Going broad feels safer because it seems like more opportunity, but broad markets are actually where attention goes to die, drowned out by 1,000 other broad, forgettable voices. Going narrow feels scary because it seems like less opportunity, but narrow is where you become the obvious, undeniable choice. You can always expand later once you dominate one lane completely. Most people never get rich because they're terrified of being too specific. Meanwhile, the specific ones are quietly building empires nobody else can touch. The follow-up fortune. What if the fortune you keep chasing isn't sitting in some new lead, it's sitting in a message you were too lazy or too scared to send again? Most people give up after one attempt and call it rejection, when really it was just bad timing they mistook for a final no. The money isn't in the first message, it's buried in message 5, 7, 10, the ones nobody else is patient enough to send. Buyers are busy, distracted, skeptical, and human. They need to see you multiple times before trust even begins to form. 1 touch builds curiosity. 10 touches build a relationship. 20 touches build a customer for life. While competitors are giving up after silence, the patient ones are quietly closing deals that everyone else assumed were dead. Stop treating no response as rejection. Start treating it as an unfinished conversation. The fortune was never lost. It was just waiting for somebody disciplined enough to follow up one more time. What if I told you that everything you think you know about building a business, building yourself and building a life you actually want, is backwards. Nobody is coming to save you. Not a mentor, not a course, not a lucky break. The people who win didn't get lucky, they got relentless. They stopped waiting to feel ready and started building systems so strong that feelings became irrelevant. You don't need motivation. Motivation is for amateurs who haven't built discipline yet. Discipline doesn't ask permission. It shows up broke, tired, heartbroken, and unqualified, and it does the work anyway. Then they fix the offer. Because nobody was rejecting the product, they were rejecting the risk. So they stacked value until saying no felt insane. They removed every excuse a buyer could hide behind and made the math so lopsided that yes became the easy decision. Then they stopped chasing one elite skill and started stacking. Decent at selling, decent at writing, decent at leading. Combined, that stack became a monopoly nobody could copy. Rare isn't talent. Rare is the stack. Then they stopped polishing and started shipping. 100 ugly attempts beat one perfect idea that never left the notes app. Every person who looks like an overnight success has a graveyard of embarrassing first tries you'll never see. Reps build skill. Fear just builds excuses. Then they stopped talking to everyone and started talking to one exact person with one exact problem. Broad markets are where attention goes to die. Narrow markets are where you become impossible to ignore. And then when everyone else gave up after one message, they sent the second, the fifth, the 10th. The fortune wasn't in some new lead. It was buried in the follow-up. Nobody else was patient enough to send. None of this required luck. None of this required a shortcut. It required someone willing to be relentless while everyone else waited for permission to begin. So here's the truth wrapped in 12 minutes. Motivation was never the missing piece. Discipline was. Your product was never the problem. Your offer was. One skill was never enough. The stack was the weapon. Perfection was never required. Volume was. Everyone was never your audience. The specific few were. And the fortune was never gone. It was just waiting one more follow-up away. Everything you needed was never a secret hiding from you. It was a decision you kept postponing. The only thing separating where you are from where you want to be is the willingness to start today, imperfectly, relentlessly, and without waiting for permission from anyone. Stop consuming another minute of advice until you've applied the last 12. Go build the version of your life that the old you would be proud to call the future. What if I told you the next 12 minutes could replace the next 12 years of struggling? Not because I'm special, not because I found some secret nobody else has, but because I'm about to hand you the exact lessons that took two of the sharpest business minds, decades of failure, rejection, and brutal trial and error to figure out, compressed into a single video you're about to watch for free. Most people will scroll past this. They'll go back to waiting for motivation that never comes, chasing perfect ideas that never ship, and giving up on follow-ups right before the money was about to show up. But you're still here, which means some part of you is done waiting. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly why your offer isn't working, why one skill will never be enough, why perfect is the enemy of paid, and why the fortune you're chasing has been one follow-up away this entire time. Stay with me for the next 12 minutes, because what you're about to hear could be the exact shift that changes everything after this. Let's begin.